Men, let's be real, women never truly appreciate your presence until they have to deal with your absence. You might think she likes having you around, but the real test of her feelings isn't when you're right in front of her, it's when you're not. And that's what we're breaking down today. Today we're diving into what a woman actually feels when you're not around. And trust me, it's not as simple as she just misses you. Her emotions shift, her mindset changes, and depending on who you are as a man, she either starts craving you more or slowly starts replacing you in her mind. See, modern dating has conditioned men to believe that constant attention is necessary to keep a woman interested. That's a lie. In reality, the space you create by stepping away, whether intentionally or not, determines whether she respects you or sees you as another disposable option. Here's the truth. When you're absent, a woman goes through a mental and emotional process that tells you everything you need to know about her true level of interest. Some women will feel a deep sense of longing. Others will experience uncertainty, and some won't feel much at all, which is also a message in itself. But most men never realize this because they're too busy chasing, over-explaining, or trying to fix something that isn't even broken. So today, we're going to break it all down. I'll walk you through the 7 key things a woman feels when you're absent. How to recognize them, how to use them to your advantage, and most importantly, how to maintain control in your relationships. Let's get into it. Number 1. She questions your value when you step back. A woman is forced to confront a simple but question. Was he actually worth my time? Women don't just miss a man because he's absent. They miss a man when his presence added something valuable to their lives. If you were just another guy texting her non-stop, validating her every move, or making yourself overly available, your absence won't create any real emotional impact. But if you were a man who brought leadership, excitement, and a sense of security the moment you're gone, she starts feeling that gap. At first, she may not even realize it. She'll carry on like nothing happened, still enjoying the attention from other guys, still busy with her life. But as time passes, something shifts. She starts questioning why she even liked you in the first place. Was it his confidence, his ambition, the way he made me feel? These thoughts creep in, and suddenly she's analyzing your value in a way she never did before. This is where things get interesting. If you were a man who always stood his ground, maintained his standards, and made her earn your attention, she'll start to feel your absence like a void. She'll realize that other men aren't measuring up that excitement, that presence, that masculine energy. It's missing. And once a woman feels that loss, she starts craving it. But on the flip side, if you were too available, too eager, or too focused on keeping her happy, she won't feel much at all. She may even feel relieved, confirming that you weren't as valuable as she once thought. Let's take a common situation. A guy dates a woman for a few months, always putting in effort, always making time for her. She enjoys it, but never fully appreciates it. One day he pulls back, less texting, less availability, more focus on his own life. At first, she doesn't care. Then a week goes by, then 2, she sees him out handling his business. Looking unbothered, suddenly, she's the one questioning her position in his life. That's when his value skyrockets. This is why absence is powerful. It forces a woman to see you clearly, either as a man she truly values or one she can easily forget. A high-value man understands this. He doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't chase. He lets his presence be a privilege, not an expectation. And when a woman starts questioning your value, that's when she realizes she may have lost something she can't easily replace. That's the difference between a man she forgets and a man she respects. Number 2, her ego takes a hit. A woman may act like she doesn't care when you pull away, but make no mistake. Her ego notices. Women are used to being chased. They're used to men constantly trying to impress them, win them over, or at the very least check in to see how they're doing. So when you go silent, when you stop feeding that attention loop, she starts feeling it, not in her heart just yet, but in her ego. At first, she might brush it off. Oh, he must be busy. He'll text me soon. But then hours turn into days, and days turn into a week. That's when the confusion kicks in. Why isn't he reaching out? See, in today's dating world, most men operate out of fear of losing her, fear of being forgotten, fear of her finding someone else. That's why they keep checking in, liking her posts, or sending those pointless, "Hey, how's your day?" texts just to stay relevant. But a man who understands his value doesn't do that. He knows that his attention is the reward. And when he removes it, a woman feels it, because suddenly she's not the one in control anymore. Now here's the key: when a woman's ego takes a hit, she won't always show it. Instead of reaching out directly, she might start posting more on social media, dressing up a little extra, or suddenly engaging with guys she previously ignored. But don't be fooled. This isn't about them, it's about you. She wants to see if you'll notice, if you'll react, if she still has that grip on you. Take this scenario. A guy and a woman have been talking consistently. She enjoys the attention, but isn't fully investing in him. One day he stops texting first. At first she shrugs it off, but after a few days, she starts subtly testing, viewing his stories, liking an old post, even mentioning his name in a group chat, just to see if he responds. She doesn't miss him yet, she misses the validation. And when he doesn't bite, that's when the ego hit turns into real frustration. A man who can resist the urge to chase is a man who forces a woman to confront her own insecurity. And once she starts wondering why you're not acting like the rest, she's already playing your game, not hers. Number 3, she feels a power shift. Something interesting happens when you go silent, not out of anger, not to manipulate, but out of self-respect. There's this moment, quiet but undeniable, when she senses it. The balance between you two shifts. It's not about dominance, it's not about playing games. It's about energy, and energy, as subtle as it seems, is always being felt, whether people admit it or not. In the early stages, she may not notice it. At first, your absence might just feel like space, like a break. But slowly it starts to carry weight. The dynamic she once felt comfortable controlling, or at least predicting, no longer plays out the same. You're not reaching out like you used to. You're not orbiting her attention. Checking in, leaving that door open. You've reclaimed yourself quietly, and that silence. It's pressure, but not the kind that begs, the kind that reveals. This is when she starts to feel it. Not just the lack of contact, but the loss of control. And let's be clear, we're not saying she's some master manipulator. Most of this isn't even conscious, it's psychological, it's emotional pattern disruption. When someone is used to having access to your attention, and suddenly that access is gone, their internal rhythm gets thrown off. It makes them feel unsettled, not because you're punishing them, but because they've lost something they didn't think they could. That's the power shift. She's no longer the one being observed, now she's the one watching. And that shift is powerful, not because you're withholding, but because you're no longer chasing. You're no longer responding on command. You've stepped off the emotional treadmill and into a different kind of posture, calm, grounded, detached. Stoic philosophy talks about this often. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom in this sense isn't physical, it's emotional. It's the ability to remain unmoved by external circumstances. And when she feels that you're no longer emotionally tangled in her decisions, when your energy no longer rises and falls based on what she does, she feels it deeply. You might be wondering, what does that even look like? How does she feel a shift in power? It's in the hesitation before she texts you. It's in the way she scrolls your profile longer than she used to. It's in the replay of old conversations, trying to figure out when exactly the dynamic changed. She starts asking herself questions. Why isn't he reaching out? Did I really matter that little? Or does he actually not need me anymore? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they're also revealing. They force her to see you through a different lens, no longer as the guy waiting in the background, but as someone standing still in his own worth. And here's where it matters most. You're not playing hard to get. You're not being cold. You're simply being unavailable in a way that reflects the work you've done. Your silence isn't a tactic, it's a statement. I'm not chasing connection from someone who didn't value it the first time. And let me tell you, she feels that, whether she admits it or not. Because power, real power, doesn't come from control, it comes from presence. From being so rooted in who you are that someone else's approval or attention doesn't shake you. Now, does that make her want you more? Maybe. Does it make her rethink things? Probably, but that's not the point. The point is, the shift in energy puts you back where you belong, centered. You're no longer orbiting her, you've become your own gravity, and that shift, once felt, can't be ignored. It forces her to recalibrate, to rethink the narrative. Maybe she thought you'd always be there. Maybe she assumed her return would be enough to reopen the door. But now, it's different. Now you're not acting out of habit. You're responding, if at all, on your own terms. And here's the most important part. The shift she feels, it's not temporary. It's not a moment. It's a reflection of a new standard, one where your time, your attention, and your energy are no longer handed over without thought. They're earned, they're respected, and if she wants to be part of your life again, she has to meet you where you are now, not where you used to be. If that truth landed for you, write this in the comments to anchor it in your mindset. Energy speaks louder. Because once that power shifts, the game changes, and you're no longer playing by the old rules. You've already outgrown them. Number 4. Her attraction intensifies. There's something about distance that sharpens desire, not always in obvious ways. Not always immediately, but when you're no longer around, when your presence fades from her daily routine, something curious starts to happen. If the connection was real, if there was even a hint of emotional weight, her attraction doesn't fade. It intensifies now. This doesn't mean she falls madly in love the moment you disappear. It's more complex than that. At first, she might feel relief, maybe even a false sense of control, but that doesn't last, because attraction isn't just about the physical or the surface. It's about energy, rhythm, tension. And when that rhythm gets interrupted, when the energy shifts without warning, it triggers a reaction, a recalibration. See, for most women, attraction isn't tied solely to how you look, what you own, or even how much you cared. It's tied to how you make her feel about herself when she's around you. It's tied to the mystery of not knowing everything about you, to the challenge of your independence, to the presence you bring that can't be replicated with a few photos or a late-night scroll through messages when you go silent. Not out of anger, but out of peace, she's left to sit with everything she once had access to. And it's in that silence where the memory of your presence becomes louder. That moment you listened without trying to fix her. The way you stayed grounded when she tested your patience. The way you didn't chase because you didn't need to. Those things start to echo. And with each day of your absence, what was once familiar becomes intriguing again. What she might have overlooked now feels rare. This is the paradox of distance. It doesn't kill attraction. It often amplifies it, especially when you don't use silence as a weapon, but as a boundary. When you keep living your life, keep moving forward, keep investing in yourself, she feels that, and that energy. It's magnetic. You might not see it, she might not say it, but trust this, if there was any part of her that felt drawn to you before the distance makes her question why she ever pulled away, she starts replaying your moments together, not from a place of nostalgia, but from curiosity. Why is he still in my head? Why does he seem more attractive now that I don't have access to him? Because mystery matters, not the kind you fake, the kind that's real. the kind that comes from you living with purpose, from not being available every time she gets bored or lonely. It's in the space where she doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know who you're talking to. She doesn't know if you still care. That uncertainty, it can trigger a surge in attraction that no amount of texting or chasing ever could. Stoicism at its core is about self-command, Epictetus said. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And this is where you practice that you don't control her feelings. You don't try to manufacture desire. You step back and let the natural tension build or dissolve on its own. And if it builds, you'll know it wasn't forced. It was real. Her attraction intensifies when she senses that your life has continued, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. When she sees you're not angry, you're not chasing, you're not begging, you're simply being, existing, growing, becoming more of yourself. That's what pulls her in, not desperation, not flattery, but evolution. It's a different type of pull than what you might be used to. This isn't about instant gratification. It's not about re-sparking old chemistry with a sweet message or an emotional conversation. It's about becoming a version of yourself that is deeply grounded, deeply centered, and letting that be what she feels when you're no longer there. And when that attraction begins to rise, it won't look like it used to. It might come as subtle curiosity, as quiet observations, as hesitation followed by consistent attempts to reconnect. Pay attention to those signs, not to feed your ego, but to measure sincerity, because attraction built in your absence says more than words spoken when you were right there beside her. If you're feeling this shift and you're tempted to lean back in too soon, pause. Let her come to you. Let her attraction do the work. If it's real, it will. If that clicked with you, drop this in the comments to lock in your mindset. Absence builds value, and now that you know how your silence amplifies desire, it's time to explore what happens next, because increased attraction doesn't mean the tests are over. In fact, they're just beginning. Let's go. Number 5. She tests you. Now this is the part most men don't expect. Or worse, they misread completely after the distance, after the silence, after that shift in power and growing attraction. She doesn't just walk back in and fully open up. Before anything real happens, she tests you, not always directly. In fact, the most important tests are the subtle ones. The ones hidden inside little comments, delayed responses, unexpected questions, or moments that seem harmless, but are carefully placed to measure something. What is she measuring? Your reaction, your energy, your growth. She wants to know if the man you are now is truly different or just playing a temporary role. See when a woman starts to feel attraction rise again, especially after a period of absence. Her emotional guard doesn't drop instantly. Attraction and trust don't move in sync. One can grow while the other holds back. And so as she inches closer, her instinct is to make sure she's not walking into the same emotional story. She's watching to see if the old patterns still exist. If she pushes a little, will you collapse? If she pulls away, will you chase? If she questions you, will you explain yourself too much? That's the test and the hardest part. It never looks like a test. That's why so many men fail it. They treat it like a moment, to convince, to prove, to resecure her affection. But she's not asking you to perform. She's asking if your new identity has roots, or if it's just a surface change. So how do you handle it? You stay grounded. You don't respond with defensiveness or neediness. You don't overcompensate. You don't try to manage her emotions. You remain calm, measured, present. That's what gets her attention. That's what reassures her without words, that the man she's dealing with now is no longer available for the games he used to tolerate. Let's be clear, her testing you isn't toxic, it's instinctive. It's part of how she protects her own vulnerability. It's not about manipulation. It's about verification. She wants to feel safe stepping back towards something that once hurt or confused her. And the only way she'll know it's safe is if your behavior stays consistent, regardless of what she throws your way. Stoicism gives you the exact posture to face this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Her tests, that's an outside event. What matters is not what she does, it's how you respond. Because your response tells her everything, not just about you, but about whether she can let her guard down, whether the connection is worth rebuilding. Let's make this real, say. She goes cold for a day, doesn't reply, seems distant. The old you might have double texted, might have questioned it, might have felt anxious, but the you now. You don't flinch, you understand space, you respect time, and most of all, you don't panic because you're not trying to keep someone who's unsure. You're observing, letting the story unfold without forcing the script. And what happens when you pass the test? She relaxes slowly. She starts to reveal more. Trust builds not because you convinced her, but because your stability gave her something to trust. But here's the warning: fail the test too early, and the story changes, not just in her mind, but in yours. Because when you slip back into old patterns, when you chase, explain, or overreact, you undo the growth you've claimed. You go from the man she respected at a distance, back to the man she left. And that's the real risk, not just losing her, but losing you again. So hold the line. When she tests you, don't resent it. Don't dramatize it. Just see it for what it is, a natural part of rebuilding anything real. It's not about passing some exam. It's about staying true to your standard, no matter what pressure she applies. And if you do that, if you stay rooted, grounded, and patient, she won't need to keep testing. She'll feel what you feel. This is different now, this is solid. If that hit home, type this in the comments to mark your mindset. I stay steady because attraction without stability fades. But when she sees you're not shaken by her tests, only then can trust begin. Let's move forward. Number 6, she considers other options. Let's get real about something that most guys don't want to hear but need to understand. While you're holding your silence, keeping your distance, staying grounded in your peace, there's a phase she goes through that feels uncomfortable to think about. She starts considering other options. That doesn't mean she's disloyal. It doesn't mean she never cared. It means she's human, and humans crave resolution. When connection gets interrupted, especially when it ends on a note that wasn't fully processed, the mind starts searching for alternatives, not just to fill space, but to fill uncertainty. And here's the thing, you're not there. You've gone quiet. You've stepped out of the old dynamic, and now the emotional momentum she once had with you. It has nowhere to land, so she starts scanning consciously or not for somewhere else to place it. It might be an ex, a new face, someone familiar, someone convenient. Not because she sees more value there, but because your absence has created space. That's what this phase is really about, space, and how people handle it when they're not used to being in it for too long. She may test the waters, she may flirt, reconnect with people she once kept on the sidelines, or even consider dating someone new. Not because she's over you, but because uncertainty is uncomfortable. And right now, she doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know if the door's still open. She doesn't know if this version of you is still emotionally accessible. But here's the part you have to remember. That's not your problem to solve. You're not in competition. You're not in a race to win her back before someone else does. You're not supposed to panic and break your silence just because she's talking to someone new. Because if what you two had was real, and if the connection had weight, no substitute will sit right, not for long. You don't need to react. You need to observe silently. Stoically, Marcus Aurelius said, "Receive without pride. Let go without attachment." That's what you're practicing here. You're not clinging. You're not panicking. You're not anchoring your worth to whether or not she sees yours while someone else is in the picture. You're staying in your lane, letting things unfold naturally. And here's the deeper layer. When she considers other options, it often works against her attraction to them. Why? Because the comparison becomes unavoidable. She starts seeing what's missing: the depth of conversation, the way you handled pressure, the way you didn't chase, the emotional presence that didn't need validation. She starts realizing that surface-level attention doesn't hit the same, that quick replies and empty compliments don't create the same gravity. But that realization only happens if you stay silent. If you try to step in, try to outshine someone else, try to remind her of what she's missing, you lose the quiet strength that made you different in the first place. You become just another option, and you're not. You're not one of many. You're the one who didn't fight for a seat at her table. You built your own. And if she's meant to come back, it'll be because she chooses you, not because you crowded out the other choices, because she felt the contrast. Because she saw that everyone else talks, but you showed restraint. Everyone else chases, but you held position. Everyone else offered attention. You offered presence, even in absence. This phase isn't easy. You might hear things through mutual friends. You might see her move differently. But none of that changes the truth. If your connection was real, and if you stay steady, she'll have to confront what those other options lack. So don't fold, don't flinch. Don't compromise your peace just to preempt a possibility. Let her explore if she needs to. Let her compare. And let your silence be the loudest thing she remembers when the noise dies down. And if that truth stung a little but made you sit up straighter, write this in the comments and claim it as your anchor. I don't compete because real value doesn't chase. It stands still, it lets others move and watches what returns with clarity. Let's move to the final chapter. What happens next? She makes a decision, one way or another, and you need to be ready for both. Number 7, she either submits or moves on. There comes a point when the silence has settled, the emotional waves have calmed, and the testing, the comparing, the second-guessing, it all stops, and what's left is a choice, a moment of clarity that no one can force. Not you, not her friends, not even time, just her and the truth of how she feels about you now that you're no longer playing by the old script. This is when the path splits. Either she submits to the reality that she still wants you on your terms, with respect for your growth, or she walks away, not out of hate, but because she realizes she can't meet you where you are anymore. Now, when I say submit, I'm not talking about control. I'm not talking about domination or power plays. I'm talking about surrendering to clarity, to emotional truth. It's that point where she drops the need to test, to prove, to perform, and just admits it. She still feels it. She wants to reconnect, but she knows she has to come correct. She submits to your pace. She respects your distance. She no longer tries to push you back into the man you were, because she sees that the version of you that emerged from her absence, he's not waiting to be chosen. He's already chosen himself. And that's the only man worth submitting to, one who stands in his values without anger, without force. But sometimes she won't. Sometimes she'll move on, not loudly, not dramatically, just slowly fade. Maybe it's because the power shift unsettled her more than she expected. Maybe it's because the tests didn't go the way she hoped. Maybe the attraction she felt during your absence wasn't enough to overcome her own fear, pride, or confusion. And yes, that can sting, but it shouldn't shake you, because this isn't about her choice. It's about your alignment. You didn't grow through all this just to be the same man again. You didn't hold the line, stay silent, set boundaries, and evolve just to collapse. The moment she makes a different decision, this journey, it was always about reclaiming your center. And whether she comes back with sincerity or walks away quietly, you remain rooted. Stoic thought reminds us of this over and over, Epictetus said. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control, her decision out of your control. Your response to it. That's where the power is. So let's say she does submit, not out of weakness, but out of recognition. She steps toward you differently, with clarity, with openness, with respect for your new standards. That's when something new can actually begin. Not a replay, not a recycled version of the past, but something built on truth. It won't be perfect, but it'll be real. And if she doesn't, let her go, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with peace. Because walking away from what doesn't align with who you are now, that's not a loss, that's a standard. Standards protect peace. Maybe she'll circle back again later. Maybe she won't, doesn't matter, because the man who made it to this point, the one who stayed silent when it hurt, who kept his energy grounded, who didn't fold under pressure, he's not chasing clarity from anyone anymore. He's living it. You're not the man who needs to be picked. You're the man who already picked himself. And whatever she decides, it just confirms what you already know. You're good either way. So if this is the point where the story ends or the chapter begins again, you'll face it with the same energy you carried through the silence, steady, aware, whole. And if you've made it this far, if you've sat with the discomfort, stayed grounded through uncertainty, and let her decision come on its own time, drop this in the comments and let it be a quiet vow to yourself. I stay ready because whether she comes back or lets go, you've already chosen the one person who never left you. And that's the full picture. 7 phases she moves through when you step away, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Some of those shifts are quiet, some are loud, some might never be spoken, but trust me, they're happening. Your silence doesn't go unnoticed. It creates space, it creates reflection, and it creates change. What matters most isn't whether she comes back, it's whether you stayed aligned with who you've become. Whether she reconnects or fades out, the real power is knowing you never lost yourself in the process. Thanks for watching. For staying with me, for taking this seriously. If this video brought you clarity, helped you breathe a little deeper, or just reminded you of your worth, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. More is on the way, real talk, rooted in psychology, grounded in Stoic truth. I'll see you in tomorrow's video.